These are interesting, chaotic, and even violent times. So maybe we should take a quick pause and talk about why you need to be registered and why you need to vote. I know I give you a point for doing that, but why? Um, Let me explain it. First off, voter turnout is weak in the United States. Little more than half of the voting age population ever bothers to vote in presidential elections. Looking at it over the last 22 election cycles, that takes us back to 1932 when the New Deal Democrats came to power with FDR. Since from that time to through 2016, the average only an average of 55.7% of the voting age population voted over that whole 84-year period. 2016 matched that national average. The highest turnout that we ever saw since 1932 was 62.8% in 1960. Since only 55.7% vote, the moral of the story is no president has been elected by a majority of the population. Over the last 22 cycles, the winner had an average support of 29.2% of the voting age population. The largest segment of the voting age population to support a single candidate in the last 84 years created that electoral college map. In 1964, the year before the Voting Rights Act, Lyndon Johnson received 61.2% of the votes cast, carried 44 states, collected 486 electoral college votes, and with that support, the largest segment of a voting age population ever, he only had 37.5% of the voting age population voted for Lyndon Johnson. In the 13 presidential elections since 1964, the winner's support by voting age only reached 30% 3 times. Nixon did it in 72, Reagan did it in 84, and Obama did it in 2008. In 2016, Trump eked out an electoral college victory when he only had 25.2% of voting age Americans supporting him. What could possibly go wrong when our presidents are picked by less than 30% of our voting age citizenry? Do your elected officials share your views, share your priorities on any number of issues, on the environment, on gun control, tuition costs, health care? If you agree with the elected officials, then turn out and vote for them. If you don't agree, then vote and turn them out. Now, in 2016 nationally, citizens age 18 to 24 voted at a rate of 43%. In the next age group up, 25 to 34, they turned out at 55%. Michigan was below the national average, especially among the youngest voters. 18 to 24-year-olds in Michigan turned out at only 38%. 25 to 34 turned out at 54%. 38% of youngest voters turned out in Michigan. That 38% meant that 308,000 young voters cast their votes. But on the flip side of that, the 62% that didn't vote was more than 500,000 people. More than 500,000 young citizens in Michigan did not vote in 2016 in an election that was decided by a margin of 10,704 votes. If young voters in Michigan had registered just at the national average, which is already weak, 55.7, that would have produced another 143,000 votes. Just in the youngest age group, just at the national average, that would be another 143,000, which was about 13 times the margin that we saw in 2016. Put it another way, there were 4,810 precincts in Michigan in 2016. The voting margin was about 2.2 votes per precinct, and that group of young voters young citizens that did not vote, that 500,000 people in the 18 to 24 group represents 104 votes per precinct. The margin was 2. Young voters represent 104. And if you don't think that your vote matters, consider what happened in 2017 in Virginia. In the Virginia elections, the House of Delegates was decided by a single vote. The Republicans had gerrymandered Virginia, and they would get 40% of the vote and 60% of the seats. So the Democrats had to push the rock up the hill, and in 2017 they almost made it. They needed to flip 16 seats. They flipped 15. In the 16th seat, it was a dead tie. 11,608 votes for the Republican, 11,608 votes for the Democrat. And under Virginia law, that meant that they picked a name out of a bowl, because picking it out of a hat would have been a little too on the nose. So they picked a name out of the bowl, and the candidate's party had control of the Virginia legislature. Turned out it was the Republican who kept the seat and kept control of the legislature. One vote in the 94th district, either way, would have decided the election, and with it, control of the Virginia House of Delegates. Michiganders aged 35 to 44 will turn out at a rate of 64%. But the 18 to 24-year-olds can't wait until they're 35 plus to show up and vote. We need you now, because you won't be 35 until something like 2037. But the UN Secretary General warned us in 2019 that climate change is going to be irreparable after 2030. Young citizens need to exercise their power now. And getting registered in Michigan has never been more rational or more convenient. We passed a couple of ballot initiatives in the 2018 midterms that included opening up voting, and you can now go and vote. You can now register to vote online at the Secretary of State's office. You can go register to vote, and when you're registered, you can go back to that website and you can request an absentee ballot. You don't have to go anywhere. You don't have to go to the Secretary of State's office. You don't even have to go to a polling station. Go online, register, and then once you're registered, request your absentee ballot. They'll mail it to you. You can study the ballot, fill it out, pick the candidates that are consistent with what you want accomplished, and mail it back in, and that's it. You need your elected officials to hear from you, and you need them to answer to you. So please, register at home and vote at home.